Welcome everyone to today's session, which is all about the science for startups with our guest HutanBio. So today, this is going to be part of our mini scientific series. So do keep an eye out for the other 2 episodes coming out very soon, but this is the first of them all. So this will be a pre-recorded session. So please, if you do have any questions, pop them in the comments. We will all still be live on the day, so we can answer any of those throughout and afterwards. But first of all, before we dive in, Jen and Hardeep, welcome. Your first LinkedIn Live. How are you both today?
All good. Thank you, Becca.
Ready to go.
Jen, would you like to give a quick brief overview of what you guys do within the scientific division at the One Group?
Yep. So we are the scientific and high-tech division at the One Group, and we look after and support a range of companies, predominantly within the Cambridgeshire area, but we do actually recruit nationwide and globally as well. And we focus on a lot of startups, hence why we're meeting with HutanBio today, as well as some bigger, more recognised companies as well.
Lovely. Thanks, Jen. So, of course, as Jen has mentioned, today our expert guests from HutanBio is James and Paul. How are you both today?
Very well, thank you.
Yeah, great.
Awesome.
Happy to be here.
Great. It's good to know. So, obviously, we're just going to dive straight in. So, Jen, over to you.
Thank you, Becca. So welcome, James. James is the engineering manager for HutanBio, and Paul Beastall here is the CEO. So I guess we dive straight into it, guys. I'd love you to tell us a bit more about HutanBio, what you're doing, about the technology.
Shall I start?
I think that's yours.
So I'm Paul Beastall. As Jen says, I'm CEO at HutanBio. And what we are doing is we're doing what nature's been doing for 2 billion years, which is we are using marine microorganisms to convert carbon dioxide and sunlight into biomass, into biological stuff, and into hydrocarbons, into oil. So unique IP is a highly robust marine microalgae that was previously unknown to science, that our team have isolated and developed. It grows in salt water, so we grow it actually in deserts, in photobioreactors, which is a very fancy phrase for big plastic bags, which I'm sure James will be talking about in a little bit more in a moment. We grow effectively the algae. It then lays down oil as its fat reserves, and then we can harvest it. So although we're an oil business, we're also a smart agri business as well, effectively, but rather than growing human food crops, we're growing an oil crop.
Yeah, I think that's a very good way to look at it. It's essentially a farm on a large scale. It's a farm with a lot of chemistry attached to it. And the challenge that we have is that this algae, it's very productive, it's very robust, but we have a lot of challenges in how we make that cost effective, how we grow it at scale, how we take a process which, well, we have a very smart team of biologists working out in Malaysia at the moment who've been studying this organism for a very long time, and the results are fantastic. And they've started moving this out of the lab into the field. We now need to take it further. And there are obviously a lot of engineering challenges involved in that. And one that Paul's obviously already mentioned is how do we form tanks that grow this material at scale for a price point that allows us to sell this in a way that makes profit. And it's an absolutely fascinating challenge, but there are a lot of challenges. So
it's also fun, James.
It is fun. It's a lot of fun, but that doesn't mean that we're not having to work very hard. We've got a very good team of engineers and scientists and biologists working all together. And I have to say, that's one of my favorite things about working at HutanBio is the team is great.
Yeah,
it's really great. It's got a great culture. It's got that advantage of being a startup where everybody has a voice. Everybody is involved in the decisions. And I think that's one of the big differences between small and big companies that I found is when it's small, everyone's in the room.
Yeah.
Everyone can talk. And I really like that.
No, I think that's great, and that's something that I'm very keen to try and hang on to as we grow and as we scale. And that's the gift that we have, is we can shape this. There is no legacy. This is the company that we're shaping and making between us. Probably just on the product, just worth saying that the output, the oil, has 3 main markets. So we're focusing on long distance transport. So electrification absolutely has a place in short haul. But if you look at those road trains that go across the Australian outback, there's nothing out there. So you need to be able to carry your energy with you. And oil, hydrocarbons, is one of the most efficient ways in terms of energy per kilogram of carrying your fuel with you. So we're targeting long distance shipping. The Ukrainian crisis showed what happened when the grain ships stopped sailing. Big risk of starvation in the developing world. Food prices, we all know, went up because of grain shortages. So actually keeping ships moving in a decreasing carbon economy is critically important. The second one we're looking at is aviation. So as a feedstock for sustainable aviation fuel. And then the third one, it always interests me, the biggest of the three markets actually is heavy land transport, so trucks. And trucking uses more oil per year than aviation and shipping combined. So it's not very sexy, but it's massive. So that's where we're starting. We're going to start with shipping first because we can go directly into ships. Our oil can be burnt directly in ships as a blend. And then working with refining partners in the medium to longer term, then targeting aviation and ground transport.
Superb. So you've got head office here in Cambridge, St John's Innovation Park, and you've obviously got all of the science happening over in Malaysia at the moment, where this microalgae is being discovered. Talk to us a little bit more about where is all this taking place, or where will it take place, hopefully?
Well, initially we're researching this out in Malaysia, just south of Kuala Lumpur. We have a test site out there where we have laboratory facilities, but also an outdoor scale-up facility. And we've got tanks out there growing algae at medium test scale. I think that's a way to describe it at this stage, to prove out those tanks, prove out the process, prove out the extraction as well. Because one of the wonderful challenges of having a microalgae that is incredibly robust, as Paul said, is it likes to hold on to its oil. So we need to somehow persuade it to let go. And that's an interesting challenge for us as well. So we have a team out in Malaysia. How many have we got now in Malaysia?
It's 11 or 12. I was there last week. I didn't count. So, but yeah, it's about 11 or 12 people. 2 of our founders, and then their technical team, looking at 3 different strands. So one is growing algae. One, as James says, is extracting it. And then we're also doing some engineering biology, looking at future strain evolution as well, to kind of keep ahead of the curve. One of our key backers, the UK Innovation and Science Seed Fund, we're actually sitting in their engineering biology category. And one of the things they were very interested in is the founding team are all geneticists who met at Cambridge. And what we can do to continue to evolve the algae over time.
Awesome. So as this series is about startups, what we wanted to do today, guys, is ask you, what are some of the challenges that are faced by all startups?
Funding.
Yeah.
At the moment, in the current climate, I think we had a bit of a glory few years where capital was relatively easy. That's gone, probably triggered by interest rates and kind of economic sentiment and all that sort of thing. But I think what we've proven and what some other businesses have proven is good businesses are still getting funded. So actually your proposition needs to be tight, your communication needs to be clear, and you need to talk to a lot of VCs. You really do, because some, we've spoken to some, we say, we think what you're doing is great, but we don't understand your market, so we can't invest, or we don't believe in algae. And it's down to a belief system. But when you resonate with the right VCs, then I think that works really well. And it is a partnership, so it's a sales job to get in the door. But then as a startup, it's also really important to think: are these people the right people to back us? Can we partner with them, and can we build something together that's going to be significant? And our seed round was led by Clean Growth Fund in London, who have been absolutely fantastic. Jonathan Tudor, one of their investment partners, has joined our board. They're the most challenging and yet supportive.
They're engaged.
They are, which is fantastic. They're great. I have zero regrets about that. But it took us a long time. So closing money, it got really quite squeaky. It does for a lot of people. So we had our first conversations with Clean Growth Fund in July last year. It took us till nearly Christmas to close, and that's what we're seeing across the board at the moment. Things are slow. but good deals are coming through.
So what's next on the fundraising horizon for HutanBio?
Well, it's a never-ending job. Literally. So we did a second close on our seed round in June. We're now pushing full steam ahead on hitting our technical and commercial milestones that will prove that we're making progress, and then we're going to have to go back out to the market and try and raise, or not try, going to have to go out to the market and raise Series A next year, and that's fundamentally, that's the most important part of my job as an early stage CEO. So as I said, I've just been out with the team in Malaysia. I also spent a few days in Singapore going around some of the VCs there, not trying to raise money at the moment, just trying to raise awareness, let them know that we're coming, we're in town, we're progressing, and just starting to build that momentum now for some more concerted action in 6 months' time.
And in order to support that, my job and the engineering team's job is to take risks off the table. Obviously, as we reduce the risk in this area, we become more investable, and so we need to reduce that as much as possible so that we're in a great position for Series A.
Fantastic. So this is, I mean, I didn't know anything about microalgae till I met you and spoke to you about this, Paul. And now, having worked with you guys, Hardeep, you'll be able to tell us as well. We've learned so much about microalgae and how it's a real thing. So what you're doing, really, a really novel thing. How do you go about protecting your IP?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, I think that there's multiple strands. The most important thing is actually around timing. So some things are patentable. So we have patents filed on some of our engineering solutions, and the microalgae itself, the strain of microalgae, because that was previously unknown to science. But it's something I'm constantly worrying about. So actually, I think it's tomorrow we have a call with our IP advisors. We've made some more technical progress, and so we're going to be working with them on what we do to best protect that. But the other thing is actually quite a lot of what we do is effectively trade secret. So actually being open and engaging with people, but not telling them things, and being really clear with the team what we can talk about and what we can't talk about is also important, because this, Jen, from your network, technical people, and I count myself as one, we love to tell stories about how clever we are. But actually, sometimes we need to remind the team that this stays under wraps until I say no. And even if we're patenting it, we need to make sure it remains secret in the company until that patent is filed.
So lots of signing of NDAs. Lots of signing of NDAs.
Lots of signing of NDAs, but even with an NDA, you want to be careful what you share, because ultimately the NDA is only as good as your ability to defend it.
Seriously, some of it's the Austin Powers approach. Zip, it's just don't speak.
We were in a call the other day where I actually had to turn to another member of the team and say, right, we need to stop here, because this is off topic, and ultimately it sounds very clandestine, but it's on a need to know basis, because protecting this is hard. And know-how can't be really protected in the UK. So it's best just to keep it secret if we can. Which is a challenge when working with your partners, because you want them to be thinking about it as well. You want them to be thinking about their solutions. We don't have all the answers, so we are talking to lots of different people from a wide range of industries to help us find solutions that work for this application. Which means that unfortunately we do tell a lot of people a lot of things. We try not to do that.
It's just so interesting talking, isn't it?
It was quite challenging coming to this. Having come across the technology with yourselves, and then what am I going to ask? How do they do this? How have they come around and got around this issue, which was there in the past for maybe others that have tried using microalgae to create this biofuel, and there's been hurdles along the way. And I was thinking, well, they're not going to share this because this is going to be their key IP. And absolutely, it's that is the value, and it's hard.
You're absolutely right. And this is an industry where many people have played in this area before. A lot of very, very clever people have played in this area with large funds, and it has not been a success. But I think, as Paul said, our key differentiator is the algae itself. Ultimately, it comes down to the biology. We take an organism that has been very successful for a ridiculous number of years, and we're going to try to take advantage of it. Sounds a bit cruel, actually, but that's what we're doing.
No, we're partnering with it.
Partnering with it. Although one friend of mine did say, so you have a job where you're going to kill trillions of algae. Yes.
Yeah. And on that, it seems to kind of bringing this back to the recruitment angle. One of the challenges is selling the excitement of working for HutanBio without spilling the beans to a candidate who you haven't got to sign an NDA. And basically that two-way selling process is a real knife edge. We need good people to want to join us and be excited, but we can't really tell them some of the details until they're on board. That's life.
Yes,
this is true. I mean, this is true of all startups, of course. So I'm sure it's a challenge that your other customers face.
Yeah, definitely they do. We have to be very careful sometimes, and ourselves, we end up signing NDAs sometimes, particularly if we go onto site. We need to sign NDAs, definitely. So, James, I know you have co-founded a company before. So before you embarked on this journey with HutanBio, I know you've been with the company a few months now. How informed were you about commercialization? Did your previous experience help you with that, or are you still learning?
Well, definitely still learning. I mean, we all are, but I would say, my previous company was predominantly in consultancy. We did develop our own products as well, but I think probably the thing we learned the most out of that was that there's a lot of great ideas out there, but do they have market fit? Do they, are you willing to be rigorous enough with your ideas to challenge them and have other people challenge them and work out whether it really solves the need, and not just whether it solves a problem, but whether your customer is willing to take a risk with a new company and make a jump to you. That is a challenge. I think it's something that a lot of engineers face, is that we get obsessed with the technicalities of the problem and overwhelmed sometimes by the technical challenges. And we think, well, if once we've taken all that risk off the table, once we've solved all these problems, then the world is ours. And it frequently isn't. I think it really helps to think early on in your commercialization, in your conceiving of an idea, to go, okay, let's imagine everything has been solved technically. Now, does the customer want it? And usually the answer is still no. Are they willing to make the jump? Are they willing to take that risk and move from the incumbent in the market to your product? What is it that's so special about what you're doing that means they're going to take that risk? And I think it's really important to think very early on what things are, what's in your customer's mind, what's their pain point, what's really what bugs them on a day-to-day, and really, are you going to help with that? Now, I think with HutanBio, that is in many ways, I think it's very critical, because in terms of market fit, in terms of whether we are generating the oil that the industry needs. But in other ways, it's a little bit easier with HutanBio, because the world is short of feedstocks, crying out for feedstocks.
Well, I'd say it's a level above that, actually. Very few people I talk to think we shouldn't be trying to solve the climate emergency.
Absolutely.
That is the level that we are at. And yet people do recognize we need to move goods around the world. We need to move people around the world. And so we need to find solutions. So, and actually regulation is in our favor as well. So in terms of market pull, I've worked for a lot of startups, or with a lot of startups, over the 25 years nearly I've spent in Cambridge. And this is the most compelling market need I've seen. What we need to do is keep working towards making sure that our solution meets the needs of the market. So there's a market there, we need to prove fit. And that includes scale, price, and product performance of the oil itself. If we do that, genuinely, I have no doubt that we've got a massive market available for us.
Yeah. So you're both engineers. What advice would you give any other engineers or scientists that have come up with some fascinating idea that could help the planet, really make a difference to lives, but they're thinking about starting up a business and they've never been involved with any of the commercial side before? There's so much to it; it's a complete minefield. But what main piece of advice would you give them?
I think this comes back to partnering. It's very hard to know what you don't know. So actually kind of testing your idea with people, find people you trust, people who've done this before. Some of our angel investors are some of the founders of CMR Surgical.
CMR,
and they've been incredibly helpful in shaping some of the early thoughts. One of our angel investors is an author, and she was great at testing the stories of how we pitched this. So actually, one of the things, assuming people are in Cambridge, is there's this amazing network of people that have done this before, that most of them have failed as well at some point. That's part of the learning process. And then they've got up, they've dusted themselves down, and they've gone again. Try and plug into that network. Find people that you can bounce ideas off. I do it fairly regularly. I must be meeting some interesting company with a concept or an idea once a month. And I go because it's interesting and because, as you say, I still identify as an engineer. I'm not a very good one, but I want to go and listen to the nerdery and understand. And so what's in it for me is probably a cup of coffee somewhere in Cambridge, and to meet someone with a really cool idea. Well, who wouldn't make time for that? So I think it's really important to test and socialize whilst protecting your IP.
Yeah. Okay. Now, we've obviously been involved with helping you with a little bit of hiring there at HutanBio. And what do you think? And you've both obviously been involved with other companies, but what do you think are the key differences in hiring for a startup and an established company? Do you think there's any different kind of softer skills that are more required, more involved in a startup?
I think there are some significantly different skills and approaches. I don't necessarily think there's a difference in the softer skills you require. I mean, I think in all working environments, we need to be aware of the people around us, what motivates them, how they hear us and how we hear them, and make sure that we are seen to hear them and listen to them. But I think one of the big differences I find is, in a small company, we need Swiss Army knives. That's what we call them anyway. You can write a job spec for today, and tomorrow it may be out of date because it's a really fast-moving world. The problems that are completely occupying me or completely occupied me last week are not the ones that now occupy me this week. Because and we quickly forget that was a huge struggle. Now we've solved it. Now we're on to something else. And that means that the team that you work with, they need to be flexible enough to bounce from subject to subject and also work at multiple levels. They need to be working down at the lowest technical level and then be able to have a strategic conversation. As I said, everybody gets to have a chance to talk. And that means they get a chance to steer the direction of the company. But that needs someone who is comfortable moving between those levels, and I think that's less of the case with a very large organization. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's not just the skills bits there. We need flexibility, we need dynamism, we need curiosity. Is actually a word that we used last week. People who test the boundaries. I think there's also just an innate kind of personality trait that some people crave security, crave certainty. They want to know exactly what their job's going to be a week on Monday. Other people like to be on a little bit of a roller coaster, and we can deliver that in spades, and there are times, there are good weeks and there are bad weeks, and actually you need to remember the good weeks to get you through the bad weeks. You need to ride the wave, and some people, and it's not even about skills, some people enjoy that and some people don't, and if you don't enjoy it, then you're probably going to struggle to get the most out of a startup career. If that's what makes you excited about life, and you wake up thinking, oh well, what fun challenges am I going to have today that I hadn't foreseen? That's a very different character. And a lot of the recruitment that I get, so James checks technical skills and those sort of things. I come and meet people towards the end of the process, and my concern is actually Are they a cultural fit? Are they happy to work in a very small team, not turn around and say, I can't do that because it's not my job? You know, everybody has to step up and do things that need to be done. We had a board meeting at St John's Innovation Centre a couple of weeks ago. I walked over the bridge to Tesco's to buy the biscuits.
I was hoovering.
I can't say I'm the CEO, I'm not doing that. You know, the job needed to be done, and that's that, and we need that across our entire team.
Yeah, I mean, it epitomizes what is startup mindset, doesn't it? I really love the term that you use, Swiss Army knife. I'm probably going to pinch that for a few job ads in future.
It wasn't ours.
It wasn't yours. If you see that, you know where it came from. So you're building this team, and how are you supporting and encouraging each other as well as the rest of the team to really focus on this immediate task without getting overwhelmed at the whole scale of the challenge of what you're doing?
I think probably the most important thing for us is picking your battles. I think that applies just as well to a startup as to raising children, but you need to pick your battles, and I think the best way to do that is to think about what is core, what really differentiates you in a company, and what is peripheral. There's a lot of moving parts in every company, in every venture, but a lot of those moving parts are maybe not the word commodity, but they're very well supplied by other companies. And you're not going to change the world by reinventing their wheels, and you'll exhaust yourself. You'll run out of budget very, very quickly. So it's important to focus on what makes you special, what's actually going to attract the next round of funding, and what's ultimately going to deliver the difference that makes people buy your product. So that helps to guide the task of picking your battles, but even then you're still going to have too many tasks to do.
Yeah.
So you have to focus on the bit that moves you forwards, and try not to swing your team around too much. You know, you're working together and it exhausts people going over here, over here, over here. And we've seen so many startup companies suffer from that. It's inevitable, because you have many people looking at what you're doing, driving you, particularly investors, who will say, you know, why don't you look at this? Why don't you look at that? And sometimes you have to say no. You have to close that door and say, yeah, we're not ignoring it, but for now, we're looking here. I think that's pretty important.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I think the flip side of the question is you also need to remind people where we're going as well.
That's right, yeah.
So actually there is the daily task, but, you know, yeah, the end game is frankly terrifying with the scale. But we chip away at it step by step, day by day. We mustn't forget why we're doing this.
Yeah.
What is the purpose? And our purpose is to decarbonize long distance transport. And we need to do that because we can't stop transport. We've built a global economy that relies on it, but also we can't afford to not decarbonize. And I think reminding people, not every day, but, you know, our regular team calls, I keep coming back to the why do we exist? What are we here for? What is our purpose? And I think that is something that is critical. So you always need to not get bogged down in the middle ground. You need to work out, what do we need to do this month, and what are we shooting for 5 years down the road? And the steps between those we don't know, but we know the direction of travel, and we know what we have to do this month to move closer.
Couldn't agree more. There's that great analogy, or the story of the American space race. Yeah. With you know, someone's, was it a cleaner or someone?
Yes. So Kennedy went to NASA, and he went around talking to people, and he went to a cleaner, and he said, "So what's your job?" He said, "Sir, I'm working to put man on the moon."
Yeah.
Because everybody had the same purpose, and that's one of those. And I think the climate emergency gives us that same sense of just pulling together. So it's actually, again, it's a really easy one to remind people of, but we need to.
Yeah, you're really creating and fostering a really special culture there, aren't you? You know, we keep reminding yourself of what you're doing and the goal at hand. It's really important with a startup, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen many startups struggle, as James said, almost by trying to do too many things. One of my challenges to my leadership team is, well, why are we doing this if it's not on the mission? how's this helping us move forwards to our primary goal? And actually focus but ambition. It's that knife edge.
Yeah, honestly, we could talk about this all day. I mean, I love what you're doing. It's absolutely fascinating. I've heard you referred to it as some kind of vineyard as well.
It's farming. This is farming.
But it's lines of green that makes a wonderful liquid. That's where my vineyard analogy came from. It's
well, and actually, engineering wise, we are looking to people who build vineyards, who support trees, support huge greenhouses, all of these structures, because ultimately the scale of this is terrifying. It's enormous. It is enormous, and for that we need a lot of structures to support these systems. And so one area that we're looking outside of biology is support structures from vineyards.
But I will say it's enormous, but it's actually not enormous when you look at what the oil sector are doing already.
No, absolutely.
It's enormous for Cambridge.
Yes, for Cambridge, I think that's right, because so much of Cambridge, so much of Cambridge tech is laboratory instrumentation. It isn't square kilometres, and that's the sort of scale, multiple square kilometres. That's what we're dealing with.
Yeah, it's definitely been a really different one for us to be involved with, hasn't it, Hardeep? I'd really encourage people to go look at the website.
Absolutely. I mean, just like you mentioned, the scale of the problem, massive. I was just looking at some of the metrics around the barrels of diesel or the million tons of diesel used around transport, and it could be a quick fix if we get this technology moving around the decarbonisation that we're trying to do, and the challenges as well, and the challenges around aviation and why that can't have the heavy batteries on board and the gases on board. And like I said, you start going through and getting really enthusiastic about the technology, and then the questions start coming, well, how are you going about this? And you can't disclose. But I really do wish that this works out and everything goes well, and you find that scale that we're looking for.
Yeah, amazing. So thank you so much for joining us today. It's been really interesting. Thank you so much, and we really wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you very much, and also thank you for your help in recruitment as well.
I was going to say that too. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you everyone so much for today's session. To those that are watching, thank you for joining us. If you do have any questions, like always, pop them in the comments, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.